When I was in grade 1, I wanted to become an IAS officer. And look at where I am now. We have this handwritten, like a very old family history chart that dates back to Lord Ram. Kotri in simple terms is a room.
Hi guys, welcome back to the DeviShow. You're on episode number 32. आज हमारे पास जो गेस्ट आ रही हैं, we have been meeting in a couple of events and एक दो बार हमारी पहले social media regarding meetings भी हुई है. She is a wonderful interior designer. Her brand stands by the name the Kotri, जिसके पीछे एक बहुत प्यारी सी स्टोरी है. I've heard. तो वो एक तो स्टोरी आज मैं सुनूंगी और सिर्फ कोटरी की नहीं, who Devyani Singh is, how did she pick this journey for herself and what are her future plans with it. It has just started raining, so I hope it doesn't spoil my episode with you. I was really looking forward to it, but you guys stay tuned, it's going to happen. Either ways, I'm just going there to pick her up and I'll see you in the end. Bye. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Very good. क्या चल रहा है?
बस कुछ नहीं, काम. So
this is your office?
Yeah, 6th floor.
Oh wow. Right in the center of the city.
हाँ, इसीलिए लिया था क्योंकि because center of the city was very important.
Yeah.
Because all the sites and all, we need to go a lot to the sites and stuff. So
yeah.
And for clients also, it's convenient if it's in the heart of. Also, my place, like my parents live just 2 minutes. Like, मतलब यहाँ से भी अंदर से भी रास्ता है.
Last time we spoke, you were just starting off after a break.
After a maternity break,
yeah.
Yes.
And how is now feels like? How does now feels like? Are you more comfortable?
Definitely more comfortable because COVID has eased out. So
yeah.
I was very paranoid about COVID and then having a baby in the middle of COVID.
Oh yeah.
So that I think has eased out. Also my son is older, so that helps because now he understands. He knows that mama goes to work.
Yeah.
As much as he does not want me to go, he understands that mama goes to work and she will get back at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And having my parents in the same city, I think is a big blessing.
Oh, yes.
And they're very close to the office. So which is, it's like a stone's throw away. So if I have like an hour for lunch, then I just go back home instead of carrying my lunch to office. So I do get to see him for a little bit during the day, and I don't end up spending too much time commuting. So I think it was all planned out around that, around having a baby and how I would manage things, because soon he'll start school. So like things, I've planned it in a manner where I can be there for him and yet continue to work. So
yes. Which year did you get married in?
2014, end of 2014.
2014. Oh wow.
It'll be 9 years now this year.
Oh, wow. How does being married, being a mom and working, handling 2 families, how is that dynamic like?
It's going well. My parents are in Jaipur, my in-laws are also in Jaipur.
Yeah.
So that way it's easy. So festivals, we can be at both places. We don't have to pick one.
Yeah.
And that helps. My husband is supportive when it comes to work. So there is no problem there. Like he doesn't expect me to stand in the kitchen and cook. So that ways we are sorted.
Yeah.
He's working, he's doing his own thing, I'm doing my own thing. So we're sorted there. And all in all, it's good because both the families are supportive towards work. So they all understand, like both set of parents, they understand that the kids are working, and they respect our work. They respect that the fact that we need to give time to work. So that really helps. And in fact, like my parents have always when I was growing up, they were always of the opinion that I should be independent. Whatever I do, irrespective of that, like there was no pressure कि doctor ही बनना है या engineer बनना है, but they say whatever you choose to do, but you need to do something. So and I'm an only child, so usually people think that only child is spoilt brat. तो वो वाला नहीं, at least I would like to believe कि नहीं है वो, because parents were always of the opinion कि नहीं काम करना है, you should work, you should be independent. And also I think being independent helps because mentally I think you're at a better place. Like when I took a maternity break, and then of course it was coupled with COVID, so the maternity break was like an extended one, longer than I would have liked it to be. And I think I'm more at peace with myself now that I'm back to work. Like I'm creatively occupied.
Yeah. So back, I think, at the control wheel. The control is back in your hands.
Yes. And like otherwise, the whole day, even if not like I had too much time on my hands. Like catering to a baby is a full-time job.
100%.
But I just feel that being creatively occupied is also very important for somebody like me. I'm an overthinker. So channelizing it in the right direction is very important. So that is definitely there.
Talking about, family and Kotri, I think the name also has a very unique story behind it, and that connects your family also.
Right.
So I'd love to hear more about that.
So when I started out in 2013, it was called Devyani Kumari Lifestyle and Design. Like it went by my name. And I just felt it was too long, and I wanted a shorter name, which was easier for people, because people didn't know how to address it. They said, "Hum Devyani Kumari se baat kar rahe hain." Like the brand didn't really have a name.
Okay.
So I wanted that also to have a name, although it is synonymous. Everything I do is synonymous with me. Only people are like, Devyani and Kotri and Devyani. They use it interchangeably. So when it came to choosing a name, I didn't want a very westernized name to it. I wanted something which was short, which was easy to remember, and at the same time had a connection to me also personally, not just have a good meaning. So Kotri in simple terms is a room. It means a room. I'm a Rajput, so the family that I come from, my ancestry includes Rao Jagmalji, who was the ruler of Amir, and Rao Khangarji, his son. And तो पहले जयपुर रॉयल फैमिली की 12 कोटरीज होती थी. There were 12 कोटरीज, basically 12 sub roots बोल दो, because see, the oldest son was always given the gaddi and the younger brothers were given different jagirs around so the eldest was given the main gaddi, the main title. जैसे अब जयपुर रॉयल फैमिली है तो the eldest brother would be given the gaddi, and then the younger ones were usually given estates around the area. So back then also तो वो 12 कोटरी थी. So the family that I come from was one of the 12 कोटरीज of the Jaipur royal family. So the significance was there, and it also meant a room. So I think it fit in perfectly.
Yeah, 100%.
And I honestly, I didn't really do too much of like back and forth with names. ऐसा नहीं था that I had 10 options to choose from. When I sat down and I was just going through the family history chart. So we have this handwritten, like a very old family history chart that dates back to Lord Ram and his son Kush.
I've heard that the royal family is 55th generation of Kush family.
So we are Suryavanshis, and so there's a very old handwritten chart that I have, and I was actually just going through that and a couple of other older documents that my grandfather had passed on to my father, and usme I saw the word Kotri. And I also knew that it meant a room. So I instantly said, okay, we're going to call it Kotri. And that's how Kotri got its name.
Wow, that's a beautiful and a very unique story.
Because, for me, besides the fact that I've taken it up as a profession, I've also grown in an environment where everyone really appreciated architecture and, just the finer things in terms of whether it was furniture or chandeliers or crockery. So, like my grandfather was very passionate about it.
Okay.
He has a huge collection which he passed on to my father then and his brothers, and and my father was equally passionate about it. So my mother loves decorating. None of them do it professionally, but it's just so I also grew up in an environment where all of this was really valued. Like for us, it was very important even when I was growing up that the bed has to be made properly, and it is not limited to just the bed sheet. उसके ऊपर एक बेड कवर भी लगेगा, कुशन्स भी लगेंगे, everything, like things had their own place and it had to be placed where it is supposed to be placed. Like the bathrooms were also decorated. So so I grew up in that environment. So I always wanted to have like a connect, like the brand to have a connect to my family history or my lineage, or just in general, like where I come from. And I think in that sense, I think Kotri felt the right name for the brand.
Wow. How does it feel like to be merging your legacy and then taking it forward?
Good. I think I feel good about it.
The ideas as well, like how are you reframing them as visions for Kotri? So,
though we work across design styles, like it's not limited to just something which is inspired by Rajasthan or by the architectural style of the Mughals, but what happens is that somewhere or the other, your exposure whether it is at home, because even at home, like when I talk about things that I've inherited, not all of it was made in India. In fact, a majority of it was made in the Western countries, including the finer bone china or the Murano glass, Italian those chandeliers or whatever. It was all like imported back then. So influence has been from all over. But how that helps is that nowadays a lot of people want one or two like finer elements in their homes, even if it is a very modern home. There are people who've come to me and said, like, I'll tell you a very interesting thing. Today, this morning, I was having a conversation with a client in Gurgaon. So it's a young couple. And, their simple brief was that we want a modern but a very well curated house. Like, it has to feel very artistic. We don't want ki bas lake furniture rakh diya ya ek painting laga diya. We want each corner to have like a story to tell. And they said that we travel a lot. So over the years, we will also like add on to it. As we travel, as we collect stuff, we'll add on to those things. And like the references that they shared, there was like a lot of it I felt that I had either seen it while growing up or I had seen it during my travels. Like when I travel, I pay a very keen attention to architecture, to fabrics. Like I spend a lot of time in stores that are dealing in say products to do with interiors. So like my husband always says that you can't take all this back home. So what's the point? I said no, but I can at least see it. No, I can't obviously take everything back home, but it stays with you somewhere. So when you need to use it in a project, at the back of your head that I've seen this and this could have been used in XYZ manner. So
your brain sounds like a chalta firta mood board.
It is actually, so like it's very funny. Whenever I talk to somebody and I listen to their brief. So first I ask them, I said, you tell me what is it that you want out of your space, whether it is a residential or a commercial space. What is your requirement?
So you're into hospitality as well.
Hospitality,
hotels,
boutique hotels. I'm doing a dental clinic also right now, in fact, for that matter.
Wow.
So we work across segments. I've done office spaces also. But the idea is that to understand first what the client needs from this, because my thought process evolves around the fact that a space, whether you're going to live in it or work out of it, or you're going to use it for your business, it has to be an extension of your personality, and it has to reflect who you are as a person. Because I will do my job and I will move out. I will hand over the project to you and I will move out. It is you who has to live there and at least use it for the next 5 to 10 years without having to change anything. So I don't follow trends blindly. Like if something is in trend and only if it fits, I will tell them to use it. Like a lot of times people come and tell me, you tell us what is in trend. And I'm like, forget what is in trend. Because trends will come and go, trends keep changing.
And what if your personality is not even the trend? Exactly.
And a space I feel should be timeless. Because not everybody can redo the entire space every 2 years or every year. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of commitment in terms of time, in terms of finances. So in every manner, it is a lot of, put very simply, it's not like an easy thing to do, even if somebody else is doing it for you, your brain is constantly working. How is it going to turn out? When can I move into the space? So there are a lot of things. So I always tell clients that, whatever you pick and choose, just ensure that it is something which you would want to retain for at least the next 10 years, if not longer. Little changes here and there, everyone does, but you shouldn't want to change everything altogether. Like I've had people come to me, जिन्होंने 2 साल पहले they moved into a new space and they're like, उस time पे तो हमें अच्छा लगा, but now this feels like a hotel. It doesn't feel like a home. So, and I just feel that a home should feel like a home and not a hotel. Like sometimes people overdo on the automation bit. And I always ask my clients, I said, do you really think you need it? As fascinating as it may sound, do you really need every nook and corner of your house to be controlled by automation? Few things I can understand, like lights I can understand, or security system I can understand, or if you have a big window and you want your blinds or the curtains on automation, I can understand. But do you want everything to be automated? I don't think you want it. It may sound very tempting. It may look good in a hotel because you're only staying there for a couple of days at the max, right? So, but when you have to use it on a day-to-day basis, it's not something that you would enjoy. It may in fact get cumbersome over a time, because you just feel there are too many buttons to press. Like inherently we are not meant for automation, to be honest. It's, of course, we're evolving with time, and few things you need automation. Like you would want कि ठीक है main gate है, अंदर से आपने you press on your phone and unlock हो गया, or you can those kind of things I can understand. या कोई heavy bar unit है, so आपने automation पे लगाया and it automatically comes out. Also you're not using it throughout the day or every day, right? You use it for certain occasions. Right. So I think that is okay, but people tend to like overdo a lot, I feel, these days. There's a very fine line between a home feeling like a hotel and a home feeling like a home. So I think that is important.
Talking about trends, are there any trends that you are pro of and ones that you don't want to use and you think that's like
so anything that is too bling is not me. Like too much bling I can't do.
Any trend that came back that you are really loving at the moment?
I think the use of cane, it's been around for a while. And I think you can't overdo it, but I think it is again a very timeless thing. And where it gives a very organic feel. So, post COVID, I noticed that there's been a shift in the way people look at their homes, because people started spending a lot of time indoors during the lockdown. Right? So now, like even people who were working in a 9 to 7 kind of a job, they spent a lot of time at home. They were working from home, and a lot of them are still working in a sort of a hybrid model now, where certain days they are working from home. And everybody felt that you need to bring a little bit of the nature or a little bit of the outdoors inside, especially in the metros and cities like Bombay and Delhi or Bangalore, where not everybody has the luxury of living in an independent bungalow. They're in apartments, so the open space that you have is limited. So people have loved using things like indoor plants, or cane for that matter has a very organic feel to it, or fabrics that are organic in nature, like cotton fabrics, or something which has a jute base. So people are enjoying those things. Like there was a time when everyone wanted just furniture which was painted in a color. Now people are going back to the the natural wooden tones. So even younger people, for that matter, they're like, we want something which looks like wood, and we want to use solid wood. So that transition is there. And like I said, trends come and go. A thing that was in trend maybe 3 years back will come back in trend, So that's why I say, like, trends, don't follow them blindly. And talking about trends that have come back, I think another thing that I really enjoy using are like, statement light fixtures. Like pendant lightings and chandeliers. There was a time when everything was just false ceiling, and there were no, like, people had, if you look back through these architectural magazines and journals, you'll see there was a time when it was just false ceiling, and usi ke andar jo lights, spotlights and the COV and surface lights, it was limited to that. There were no pendant lights, there were no chandeliers. That had, people felt it was too old fashioned. Now every client in the last 6 months that I've spoken to have requested for like a statement light fixture. So those things have definitely changed. Also, I think with access to the internet and like so much information being available online and people traveling a lot more, people, the way they think has also changed. So somebody would see something in Europe and they'll be like, can we incorporate this in some manner here? So the client is also very well informed.
Is getting diverse. And they want to reflect it in their homes also.
Absolutely. Like maybe in the 90s, I feel the architects who were practicing then, or the interior designers who were practicing then, us time pe hota tha, whatever they would suggest, the client would just blindly follow that. Now that's not the case. The client is absolutely well informed. In most cases, they come with a Pinterest mood board to you for the first meeting, that this is what we have, this is what our vision is. Now help us put it into place and how we can execute the whole thing and put it together. So they're informed, they have a lot of references, they are well traveled, they are well informed. People don't want to follow like one theme across the house also. Like somebody will say that one room I want should look like this, and my dining area should feel like this. My kitchen, like I remember there was a time when people were just like, एक word आता था लोगों को, which was कि modular kitchen बना दो. Now modular is basically, it's your attachments that you use, that is what makes it into a modular kitchen. उसके ऊपर जो भी finishes है, those can vary. It could be paint, it could be a laminate, it could be something veneer, it could be anything, right?
Now they know the
they know the base also.
Oh yes.
And they're paying a lot of attention to the kitchen as well. So it's not limited to just the attachments. They know कि वो तो हो जाएगा, but they are also concerned about the finishes, about the hardware, the kind of handles you use for that matter.
Right.
So like I like to pay attention to the little details. Like my team often jokes with me that ma'am will now pick the handles herself, because I love doing that, and I feel those smaller things can make a big impact.
Big impact, right.
Like a small cupboard with a nice handle can look totally different, you know. Like,
for sure.
And if I put those simple straight line handles, वो शायद नहीं उतना अच्छा लगेगा. Not that those are bad. A lot of times people tell me that, you know, we're in a rented accommodation.
Yeah.
And though we plan to stay here for the next 5 years, but we obviously can't do too much change to the space. Like we can't do civil changes, and we can't, you know, we don't want to invest an excessive amount.
Yeah.
So how do we go about it? And I tell them, like I said, the simplest is that you can change your hardware. Like that's the first step. It's economical. It's easy to do. And you know, like, so but there are a lot of smaller things that you can do. Change a light fixture somewhere, add some plants. Plants instantly liven up a space.
Yeah.
You know, and up to again, plants में भी people are like very well informed now. पहले होता था कि palm पता है, या you know basic पता है, bougainvillea पता है. अभी now they know. Now people will come and say we want a fiddle leaf, or we want, you know, XYZ. You know, so they understand that also.
Right. In your designs also, I've seen like you're not a minimalist also, but you're not a maximalist also, because you like आपने cupboard का example दिया, those handles will be statement and the cupboard will be very minimal. So it's like a very fine balance that you follow. In a room, like you will have very minimal structure, but then the sheets that you use and the pillow covers would have frills on them. That will make them thoda maximalism ka concept.
Because you know those things, what happens is like bed linen for that matter. Now I feel bed linen makes a huge impact.
Yeah.
No matter how beautifully you do up a bedroom, with the wrong bed linen, it can just look totally off and dull. Right? So when we hand over a site, especially residential sites, we do the staging on the final day of the handover.
Right.
So when clients come back, they're all like, oh wow, you know, and most of the time the clients are like, ये हम ऐसे ही रखना चाहते हैं. We don't want to like move anything even an inch, you know. Like I said, like a lot of times now people tell me, like clients will tell us कि अच्छा आप for every bedroom please give us 2 or 3 sets of bed linen also. You know, you do that
so that
for
we
us.
Change those only, but use the same tones.
Or you know, like all the cushion covers, make sure they're there. Like so, this one time I remember the client came to the site in the morning. That was on the day of the handover, and that evening we had to hand over. And handover days are chaotic. Let me tell you, there are 50 odd people on the site. There's so much happening, and when the client comes in the morning, they're like, there is no way aaj handover ho sakta hai. And then when you call them that okay, the house is ready, and they come in, and they're just like very pleasantly surprised that is this the same house that we came to in the morning? And you know, like, so when they come, a lot of times we're unpacking, right? And they're like, इतने सारे cushions, do we need so many fillers? I said, we'll talk about this, you know, when you come into your house. And then they're like, okay, we want to give all of this, please don't take anything back, you know. So to see things, you know, stacked up in one corner versus to see it all, you know, put together, it's very different. You may feel, what will I do? Like 20 fillers will sound a lot to, you know, a normal person, right? 20 fillers का क्या करेंगे, you know? But वो 20 आपके बहुत बार एक living area में लग जाते हैं. It's a big size living area. And it's those cushions that can make a normal dull grey color sofa also look very like. And you can change, right? Like if I use something which is very organic in nature, जैसे suppose थोड़ा सा bohemian डाल दो या थोड़ा सा organic डाल दो, so it creates a different vibe for the room. Now if I get something which is more traditional, something maybe in brocade or silk or something which has more traditional patterns, it will change the vibe of that room. So cushions can instantly change the mood and the vibe of a space, and they're very underrated that way, I feel. So there are very like small things like that. Like I think art people should really invest into. Like a lot of times people feel कि कुछ भी लगा दो, and I feel नहीं, कुछ भी मत लगाओ. Treat it as an investment. And investment does not need to be in lakhs. You can start small, but get like good curated art pieces, because that's something you'll cherish, and it's something you can even pass on later, you know. So art, I think people, लोगों को लगता है कि ठीक है wallpaper लगा दिया, end of story. No, I feel art is more important, and wallpapers are expensive. Like the good ones are as expensive as a painting would be. So I feel that if you have to choose one, I think go for art. You know, wallpapers are good. I'm not saying they're bad or you shouldn't use them.
Yeah.
But if you have limited budget and you need to pick one, then art. Because again, art you can move around the house also, right?
Yeah.
आपने एक साल उसको living room में लगा दिया. Next year you can move it to a bedroom. The third year it could go to a different bedroom. Fourth year it could come back to a dining area. So each area also starts looking different.
Right.
So when I design spaces, I always feel that things should be interchangeable also. So that, you know, today you are bored of it in this area, you can just move it to a different area and you can liven it up. You know, even furniture pieces for that matter.
Yeah.
If it's not too bulky and if it is not always fixed in nature, you can move them around. You can change the seating in your living area. Like you can just move around a chair from one end to the other.
Right.
Move your couch if you have the freedom of space, and then you can just change the whole look altogether. You get a beautiful rug. I think rugs, people in India a lot of times, like, you know, especially I think like my parents have been fond of it, but like that generation, I feel a lot of times, you know, like my clients tell me that, you know, parents feel that rug ganda ho jayega. Yeah, India mein, you know, it's not, is it really necessary to have a rug? And then I have to tell them, I said, you know, it's not about ganda, to dekho, everything can get ganda. Even your bed can get dirty. Obviously, furnishings, curtains, everything can get dirty, right? It's just, and you can always get it cleaned. There are professional cleaners now. But again, आपकी अगर flooring अच्छी नहीं है, instead of changing the whole flooring, because I understand it's a lot of work, and why don't you get a nice rug? Like get an area rug, put it up, and it looks beautiful. It's also about how a space feels, you know, it has to feel like warm and cozy. Rugs will instantly make a space cozy.
100%.
So वो जो maximal minimal का play है ना, उससे आप change कर सकते हो. Like if everything else is very minimal, get a nice bold rug. And if everything else is too loud or too eclectic, then you get a rug that is simpler, maybe, you know.
You learned, I think, a lot of aesthetics from back then and from your family and all. How does design and functionality then played a role in your life, and how did you learn? Where did you learn that aspect from?
A lot of it on the job, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because I feel spaces have to be functional first. Also, like, you know, going back to like how my family was always, you know, inclined towards the aesthetic aspect of things. They were also a little functional that way. It was never that, you know, that a wardrobe looks pretty but didn't have storage. And nowadays, again, like I said, I learned it on the job, is also because when I was in Delhi, and a lot of my projects were apartments, even if they were bigger size apartments, because there's a lot of apartment culture in Gurgaon especially. So even if they were like 8,000, 9,000 square feet homes, they were like still apartments, you know. Or even if it was a 3,000 square feet home, it was an apartment. And in apartments, functionality is very important.
True.
Because you have limited space and you need to play around with that. Also, having wardrobes in each and every corner and nook of the house is never a pleasing thing to do, you know. So things have to be functional. You know, like a small kitchen. A lot of times clients come and say that, you know, our kitchen is very small. We don't know how we're going to manage. And I said, you know, okay, it is small, fair enough, but we can manage the storage in a way where you can make the maximum out of that limited space. And if it is not well planned, then
it'll look very chaotic.
Like floor plans for that matter. I think every floor plan, like you can come up with a better floor plan for every floor plan till you reach a point where you are satisfied. You know, so floor plans for that matter are very important because they can make a space very functional. A lot of times you have a space in the house, but just because there is a wall somewhere, or you know, there's a smaller room which you feel like, normally क्या होता है, people have this mindset that एक room तो मिल रहा है extra, even if it is a very small say 8x8 size का room, which is barely a room, you know, you
can call it a 3
you can call it a room. Functionality wise, can they do too much out of it? They can't. They'll probably have like a study or a wardrobe or a mandir in that room. That's the maximum you can do, because in an 8x8 you can't have a 6x6 ka bed, right? So it's a very small space. And I'm not saying it's always the case, because it varies from project to project and you know, the nature of a requirement. like a lot of times if you open up that space and you include it in the living area, so whatever you were initially planning to do with that space in an 8x8 ka room, that also gets taken care of. Plus you have a little additional space that you can use for something else. So you know, things like that. So functionality is very important, because no matter how beautiful something looks, like if a chandelier, no matter how beautiful it is, but if I'm banging my head into it, does it really make sense to have it there? Like lighting, no matter how good it is, but if it is too bright, if it is too much in your eye, does it really make sense? It won't really make sense. Like अभी एक ये concept है लोगों का कि false ceiling तो must है, and a lot of my clients are very surprised when I tell them it's not a must. They're like, आप पहले designer हो, हमने इतने उससे बात करी, or the first one who said it's not a must. I said, yeah, because it is not a must. Why must your, especially for residences, you know, why must your house feel like a showroom? I'm not saying false ceiling does not have its advantages, but only incorporate it if it is a must. If you do not have enough light points, if you can't play around with ambient lighting, you know, in the form of lamps or other, you know, wall lights, then you go for it. Like personally, I wouldn't like having too much light on my head all the time, you know. Like it looks nice in a jewelry showroom or in a garment showroom or in a restaurant sometimes, for that matter. Kitchen, I can understand.
You want to like place a product in a spotlight.
Exactly.
That is the whole idea behind giving spotlight.
Or you know, maybe in the kitchen on the counter you need to have proper lighting, so that you know when you're chopping or when you're cooking, you need that kind of lighting. But do I need that kind of lighting all the time in my bedroom? I don't. Like bedroom is where people go to retire and relax at the end of the day. So you don't want too much, you know, like I personally feel bedrooms should have like warm lighting, yellow, or you know, like warmer tones, not like white and bright lighting. Because there is scientific evidence that, you know, white light or very bright light, it kind of makes your brain more active. Now when you're going to sleep or just relax in your bedroom, you don't want that kind of lighting which will you know, rewire your brain and you know, like get active and start thinking again. You want to relax and just maybe read a book or end your day, you know. Like also to read a book, you don't always need like focus light, like spotlight. You could have a nice bedside lamp and you could read using that
can
light.
Be an additional accessory.
Absolutely.
Oh God, you have to deal with, I think, so many vendors, and there are so many aspects to, you know, just let's say curating like a small apartment only. How have you like build these relationships with your vendors throughout, you know, who are similar to your taste, and who you can trust with your projects?
So most of my vendors who I'm working with now are the ones who I've worked with in the past for several years. How I built it, for me 3 things are very important. One, honesty. गलत हो गया आप बता दो. मटीरियल और चाहिए आप बता दो, पर झूठ मत बोलो. You need 2 extra days, it is okay, but don't cut corners. The other is that, you know, you need to know how to behave, in the sense that you need to be polite. You can't, you know, like a lot of, and I don't blame them for them, like, you know, because they are also a lot of times overworked, or they have deadlines to meet, or you know, sometimes the contractor is not paying them, you know. So there are things like that happen. So a lot of times I feel that, you know, their behavior is not proper, like, you know, वो लड़ाई कर रहे हैं किसी से, या so I work with people who can talk politely, calmly. That is very important, because it's a two-way thing. I also I'm not somebody who likes to scream and shout. Like I don't go and scream and shout on my sites. तो मेरा it's a very funny thing. कभी अगर if I raise my voice का pitch थोड़ा सा भी, then they know कि कुछ आज बहुत गलत हुआ है, because normally she would never talk like that. So if I'm like, so they understand. And the other thing, like I said, is that everybody learns, you know. It has to be a constant learning curve. Like I feel I'm learning every day. Even whether it's from my clients, whether it's from, you know, people who are supplying us material, like our vendors, or you know, our labor or contractors, or you know, other skilled craftsmen who we work with. It's a constant learning curve. Every day everybody will teach you something, and every project teaches us. No matter how much we think we know everything, every project will teach us something new. So I feel for them also it's important that they keep learning. Because if you are not updated, because a lot of times होता है ऐसा नहीं, हमने कोई drawing दिया है, working drawing, and they will tell us a better way to do it. Say, ma'am, अगर आप बोलो तो हम ऐसे experimentation, they should be up for experimenting also, I feel. So that is another quality that should be there. And ऐसा नहीं है कि हमेशा the first person we worked with in that particular field is the one who we've continued to work with. Sometimes we found someone better, so we've started working more with that particular vendor. So that also happens. And हाँ, easy नहीं है इनके साथ काम करना, because any industry that is labor intensive, it's difficult, because there will be a lot more errors. There will be a lot more room for making mistakes or goof ups.
But it gives, I think, space to train them also.
Absolutely. So they learn, and in fact, it'll look like I'm just kind of trying to just put Kotri in a good light. But what happens is that because abhi recent mein, especially like post my maternity break and after I started working more in Jaipur, Delhi mein utna nahi tha. A lot of the people we work with, they're very surprised कि हम इतनी सारी उनको drawings या इतनी सारी files देते हैं. Like for me everything needs to be organized. Quotation भी है तो वो बहुत organized manner में बनना चाहिए. Like I have a template for everything. And so a lot of times initially, especially when they're working with it, like मैम हम हाथ से लिख के दे देंगे. I be like नहीं, आप इसमें डाल के दो. हाथ से भी लिखना है तो मैं आपको print out दूंगी, आप इसमें लिख के दो, so that everything stays. Like I just feel more at ease when it is organized. So वो training वाला है, so they also get trained. And the next time when they're making a quote, they know that they have to follow a certain pattern, and they work around that. Like कुछ भी चीज है, and they also understand that ठीक है, ये इनका ये concept है कि she is very transparent with her clients, so then they automatically pick that up, and then they also maintain that transparency with the client. Like if the client is visiting the site, ऐसा नहीं है कि वो आपको बताएंगे नहीं कि क्या material use हो रहा है या वो झूठ बोलेंगे. Whatever is there, they will tell you, because they also know that this is how things work here. तो वो I feel Jaipur में was a bigger challenge initially. Delhi NCR relatively lesser I felt. I think they were a little more trained there. यहाँ पे नहीं था. Like for them to understand those drawings also took a time. Like a lot of times when you would give them the drawings also, they would call us 10 times. कि अच्छा ये, then we would go and explain it practically. So but now most of them, touch wood, by God's grace, I have people who understand. तो drawing दे दिया, उसके बाद we have our timely supervision, so we go, we visit, and we work around things, but then they understand. Like जैसे suppose कोई false ceiling वाला भी है, so they now understand कि हाँ मतलब मैम will check कि आधा इंच भी ऊपर नीचे नहीं होना चाहिए, because और वो खुद आके बोले कि मैम एक्चुअली क्या होता, पिछली लास्ट टाइम कभी हमने किया होगा तो किसी ने इतना ध्यान ही नहीं दिया, पर आप तो एक एक चीज को ध्यान देते हो. लाइक ग्राउटिंग है, सो like now over time they understand. When they work with you for 2 or 3 projects, then they know and then they are trained. So it's a two-way thing. Initially it's difficult for us, but then if we give them that time and if we are a little patient with them, then they pick it up and they make our lives easier over time. So for the the future projects, they are better trained, they understand things in a better manner.
Absolutely. We haven't spoken about the place near Jaipur that you come from, and then coming to Jaipur, then you were in Milan for some time, then I think you married in Delhi.
So no, we moved to, like my husband was in Delhi when we got married initially, and so we were living in Delhi like till 2018. We were in Delhi,
right?
And then I kind of partially moved, so shuttling between Delhi and Jaipur. And 2020, like when COVID hit, is when we decided to and then we were also like planning on having a baby and all of that, and we just felt that with both of us working and doing our own, my husband also has a business of his own, so our work timings are not fixed कि ऐसा नहीं है typical 9 to 5 है. Some days are easier, some days we're working till late also. So we understood that it's important to have family around, and by God's grace both set of parents were in Jaipur, retired here, so that made it easier. And Jaipur, I've always loved Jaipur. I'm a Jaipur baby. I have been born and raised in Jaipur, so I have loved Jaipur. For my husband, of course, he was not from Jaipur, but I think now he's okay with the idea of living in Jaipur, because he's kind of, he's understood now that this is where we need to be, and this is where everything is. Everything needs to revolve around Jaipur. So even if you have to travel for work, it has to be from Jaipur. So initially लगता था when we had just come back from Delhi, and उसके पहले like I also hadn't stayed in Jaipur after school for very long. Like I was in Pune and then I went to Delhi, and and then I was again got married and went back to Gurgaon. So I had been away from Jaipur for a while. Like I used to come and go like a visitor for a couple of days or a couple of weeks maximum, but like not really spend extended period of time here. So when we came back to initially लगता था there aren't too many places to go to. Like Delhi, like my husband is a foodie, so we would go out to a restaurant almost every other day, or we were ordering in food. Now now that has picked up. Now there are a lot of places. I think especially post-COVID there's been a boom, so we don't really miss that too much. And then the good thing about Jaipur is I think it's very close to Delhi. Even if you drive down, it's like Gurgaon is like a 3.5 hour drive. Right. There are flights, there are trains, so it's very convenient. So traveling, I think commuting is easy. My husband does a lot of work out of Dubai, so like for him now Jaipur, so there's a direct flight, so that makes it easy for him. So I think it's all good now.
How is Milan like?
Milan
a lot of people who I've met of late or who came back from Milan are doing so well in their creative field.
Milan is a very creative city. So the first time I went to Milan was in 2005 with my mother. We were traveling in Europe, and that's the first time I went to Milan. And like the moment we stepped into Milan, and we did a couple of countries in Europe at that point. And in fact Milan was not even on our like a travel list. But we were in Italy and we said, chalo, let's just, and we had a Eurorail pass. So basically that made it very convenient to travel within Europe. Right. So we said, chalo, let's go to Milan for 2 days, And we went to Milan, and the vibe of the city, like it's very, like it's a fashion capital. It's in terms of design, there's so much. Like the central square, I'm forgetting the name that they have there. And I'm talking about 2005. The first time I saw that even a brand like McDonald's, time McDonald's was anyways very popular. Like up to it's still kind of taken a little backseat. They've also, their operations are also limited now. They've closed down a lot of outlets and stuff. Us time pe McDonald's was like the thing. So वहाँ पे all the brands had a like in a black marble or a stone, whatever, like some fancy marble. All the brand labels were printed in golden on that black. So they had to, whether it was a Louis Vuitton or a Gucci or a McDonald's, if you have an outlet in that area. But that's something which stuck with me. Ki, they're so particular about design that they've ensured that to maintain symmetry. And it is, mind you, this is not in a mall. These are like standalone outlets in a similar area. It's not like it's in a mall, so you have to follow. But like they were particular about things there also. Like you're walking on the streets and people are like so fashionably dressed up. The biggest of fairs and trade shows happen in Milan. Whether it's to do with furniture or textiles. So Milan, I think, although my stint when it came to studying in Milan was a short one. It was a semester there. It wasn't like an entire year there. But of course, it opens up your horizons. It was also a lot about practical learning when we were there. It wasn't limited to just studying in a college or sitting in a classroom. It was also about, and that's what the college also told us when they planned the whole the Milan semester, that it is for you to look at design from a different perspective. To live in a design capital and to understand how everything can revolve around design. So it was good. It was fun. It was during the winters, and I'm not such a winter person, so that was a bit of a. But otherwise, I think it was lovely.
It was like a multidisciplinary course, or
so it was basically, it was more of a luxury design course, and I specialized into interiors in that. Like that. So so there were people who they picked up different, like somebody did like luxury fashion in that, and then I did luxury design, and then I, like all my juries, I presented from the luxury interior design perspective. Like all my projects were around that. In fact, I did one project which was on hospitality, and where my case study was with Oberoi's, namely the Oberoi Raj Villas, Oberoi Amar Villas and Vanya Villas, like this category, Uday Villas, jo 4 properties, those were the focus. So, like, because design is not limited to just, what you see on the outside. There is a lot of, like when I present for a simple thing like a mood board also to a client, like when you look at it, you probably feel isme to kya hai? These are just images, or you know, like maybe some samples, like some fabric swatches and things like that. But there is a lot of thought process that goes behind curating that single mood board also, because it's not like I've just picked up the first thing that I saw. I will sit down, we sketch out a lot of things, because you don't always find everything readily available on the internet. Even when we're communicating in the office amongst ourselves, a lot of times to explain you have to sketch something out and show this is what I'm trying to say. And then even to put it on a software and to because one is where you just make a render, like there are a lot of people who do just renders, like they've taken making renders as a profession, but when they're making a render, it may look appealing visually on the outside, but they ignore a lot of very basic things like how big a door should be, or whether you need a railing somewhere, so we take into account everything. अगर कोई facade design कर रहे हैं हम, so we'll also look at कहाँ पे railing आनी चाहिए, कहाँ पे नहीं आनी चाहिए, safety, functionality, use of materials, if it's something that can be done on the outdoors. Because a material that is being used indoors will not last very long if you use it outdoors, no matter how good it looks. So everything, and then of course every client, whether it's a big or small, they all have a budget, right? So you need to put everything under that budget also. A thing that a lot of people ignore is that budgets are very important. Whether it is a budget that is running in crores or in lakhs, but a budget is a budget, So budgets are important. You need to stick to that. Like, it'll be very wrong on my part to make a design which is maybe 3 times the client's budget and present it to them. They may like it, but what's the point of, I'm not teasing them, right? Like, ki acha ye hai, but you can't have this, because that's a very wrong approach. So the idea is that you know a budget and then you work around that and you give them the best in that budget.
I think we have sort of reached the end of our session.
Thank you.
It was
for the
lovely discussion, and I'm always very intrigued with architecture, and we have done it with another architect, sustainable architect, and the false ceiling part that you were talking about, it was so similar because he's into sustainability completely.
Right.
And it's so fascinating. I think I'm going to go back to both the episodes when I'm in that zone to just go through all of this content back again. So thank you so much for sharing all of this with us.
Thank you, Divisha. It was lovely having this conversation with you, because a lot of times people talk to you and they're like, oh, it's a good profession to be in, because it's because people feel it's not too much work, but on the other hand, it's just the opposite.
Right.
And
and especially design, I feel design has been taken so lightly of late, like for the longest of years, and now it's still making its stance, but it's so important. Like, everything that you look at should solve a purpose and should have a good design.
Exactly, like everything aesthetic. You have to justify everything that you do, even if it is a small flower vase somewhere or a piece of decor. There has to be like a story behind it, right? You can't just be like, "Yeah, theek hai, laga diya." You know, like that would be a very wrong way to put something. I just feel कि कुछ तो होना चाहिए ना, like कि why क्यों लगाया, उसके पीछे भी तो कुछ reasoning होनी चाहिए.
Your reasoning was developed best in your growing up years with your parents. Were they like one of the biggest reasons, or your culture being a Rajput, or being an adult exploring experiences, or Milan? Who would you give like more weightage to?
See, honestly, it's a mix of everything, because it's been inculcated over time. It's not like I inculcated it in the last 6 months or in the last 3 years. It's been over time, and I think exposure definitely. So I think growing up years definitely, because they're also your formative years.
Right.
Even when I was in school, and I think schooling also, to be very honest, would be very instrumental, because in MGD back then they gave a huge importance to these co-curricular activities, and it was not limited to just sports.
Right.
Like I'll give you a very small example. We used to have these flower arrangement competitions, inter-house competitions, and for a flower arrangement competition, now how could you stand out? So I remember there was this one year where when I was in the senior classes and I was kind of running the show for my house, and we did those I called it the 7 seasons of life or something like that, and each arrangement, so we had to do 7 arrangements, and each was inspired by a different mood of life. So like seasons of life but like a mood. And back then flowers like say bird of paradise and all of that were not very common. Like now they are available everywhere and everybody knows about them. Back then it was limited to roses, carnations, maybe zerberas, you know, like it was, or lilies. And we used like orchids and birds of paradise back then, and every arrangement also had a name. And the one that where we used the bird of paradise, I still remember it had something to do with anger because it was orange and it had those pointed ends. So it was, you know, so everything. And I think orchid, if I'm not wrong, had something to do with the last stages of life, where because it was purple in color, and it was, and we wrote like a description for each. So school, I think, really, because it made us think in different tangents over things. Like when you look at a flower, you just admire its beauty. You don't really think what else could, like, you know, how could it signify something else?
Right.
Like it's easy, okay, a white flower can signify peace, but or red maybe for love, like red and pink. But do you ever think beyond that? One normally doesn't.
Right.
Why I gave you this example is because after that I started looking at flowers like that. Because you're asking me which phase of life, I think though the early years of my life, and school definitely had a very important role to play there.
I've had so many MGDs here with me, and every one of them have credited their school for, you know, a big thing in their life. So
because everything, whether it was public speaking, they ensured that there was an overall development.
Right.
And it was never about giving preference to somebody because they came from a certain background. Everybody was treated as one. Nobody cared who's coming in which car or who's going for a holiday where, which I get to hear a lot these days, you know, from parents of younger kids, that, you know, this is what is being spoken about in schools, and which really like shocks and surprises me because when we were in school, we were so naive. We never cared. For us, it was about who's doing good at what in school, you know, and it was about being at our creative best, at our intellectual best, and having all these, like we had competitions like rangoli making, and तब जाके मुझे पता चला कि वो sand, वो रेत को color करके उससे भी colors बनाते हैं रंगोली के, because we used to go to Tripolia Bazaar and get the exact shades made. So things which I would have never done otherwise, and I don't think I ever made a rangoli after passing out of school, and I was not good at it even in school.
But then I think that was a seed for that, you know, bloomed into a lot of other creative things.
Because they, like even a small competition with limited budget, we used to do so much, and it was all about being creative.
Right.
So that's everything had to have a meaning, a significance, and you know, it just made you think a lot more. Like it was not limited to just textbooks or having one poetry competition or a debate. It was way more than that.
You are another checklist on the MGD, and this school is now in awe of their schools.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think as you grow up, you realize how much value your school has provided and how it devalued you also.
So when I was in MGD, my parents really wanted me to go to a boarding, just because they felt that it would be good for like my overall development, and I was like a half boarder in school, you know, like all my friends were boarders. I didn't have any day scholar friends. Lot of teachers, all 12 years that I was in school, especially more so during the senior classes, they used to think I was a boarder. Because I was with them, I was hanging around in the school even after school hours, and then going back again in the evening for sports. I outrightly told my parents, if you want to put me in a boarding, I'm okay to go into the MGT boarding. But I don't want to leave school because I'm learning so much and I've grown so much as a person. Even things like leadership qualities, like I was a part of the school cabinet then, and for us voting system was it was like how you cast your votes when you cast for your Lok Sabha elections, or for your the state assembly elections. They had a secret voting ballot. वो blue ink लगता था, There were ballot papers. The ballot boxes were sealed with the MGD ka seal, which were only opened in that counting room with the presence of certain number of teachers. And there was secret. So there was no like sort of ki aapne kisko vote diya. You were under any sort of pressure because it was a secret ballot. So even basic things like that. Things like table manners. So the boarders had to carry on like a table napkin, which they called the serviette, to the dining hall every time. Now the importance for that was mainly so that you understand the, that how you're supposed to place it, how you have to use it. So like basic things like that. I think MGD really grooms you. Yeah, at least it groomed us back in the day. And Mrs. Bakshi was the principal like for the 12 years that I was in MGD. She's no more now, and I think she literally gave us wings to fly. I would say that she was strict where she had to be, but she was also like a friend to us. Like we could go up to her bungalow and talk to her about things that we couldn't talk to the teachers about as well. So, and she understood the good, and in spite of being so learned, like she had a PhD in English, a PhD in Hindi, and a PhD in Sanskrit. She was an author who had written several books. So herself was such a learned person.
Yeah.
But again, very like, they would send us for these exchange programs. Ab to bahut common ho gaya exchange. Us time pe we went to Zimbabwe for an exchange when I was in 11th grade. Again, it teaches you so much.
100%.
You learn so much, I think we were about 12 or 15 of us. I don't recall the exact number. But we went to a country where a lot of parents were hesitant at first because firstly Africa, then Zimbabwe, they felt crime rate is high and not your regular Western Europe country. Everything is very hunky-dory and safe and public transport and this and that. Everything. But we were really well cared for. But things they teach you, everything teaches you so many things. Like every experience that you have, and school really like taught us so much, I feel.
Wow, you're making me. I remember I was in my 3rd standard. I was in Anselm's, Malvinagar. And I was in my 3rd standard. My parents took me ki yaar exam de, go to MGD. And I'm like, no, I don't know. And I was standing in, that's the only time I've visited MGD. And you're making me regret that decision. And a lot of people, in fact, yaar. When I went to Mumbai also, everyone knew these 2 schools only. Are you from MGD? No, yeah. There are other schools as well. And then the second one was, are you from Step by Step? Which is now.
So like now, like I have a son, right? And now when I think about putting him in school, like in grade 1, I'm not talking about the kindergarten, but I really can't pick a school. Like I always tell my husband, if I was a daughter, I would just put her in MGD. It was so easy. But for a son, I'm confused. Also because I haven't gone to that school. Like I think if somebody's passed out from a school, it may be easier for them to make that decision.
Right.
But for me, I'm like, because when I look back and think about what we learnt in school or how school was for us, I don't see that anywhere. Like I went to a couple of schools just scouting, like because now my son will start school soon. I mean, they're all good. They all have they're better in terms of they have the latest technology now and infrastructure wise. But jo MGD ka campus tha, I said, these are all like buildings with one ground maximum. That we had 5-6 different grounds. We had a hockey field, we had a cricket field, we had a separate area for the tennis courts, we had a basketball court, we had a kho-kho field, so we were so used to having so much space. Like I remember we used to enjoy just walking around the campus. That itself was such a we enjoyed that.
Wow.
So but that is not there now. And I understand that with times it's difficult to get such big chunks of land and where could you possibly get one, but though there's a lot of tilt towards IB schools, and I most likely will end up putting my son in one because that's what everybody is doing these days. But I feel that the CBSE system of education was also good. No matter how much we crib about the maths or that we don't end up using it anywhere. But I just feel that it was still a good system of education. It was not bad because maybe for today's time it may not be the most apt system, like a lot of people feel that way. But I think when we were growing up, it was good only because whatever we've learned is out of that.
But IB is a new
thing.
So nice.
But come over one day to the office. Aise Aga, we'll order in nice coffee and
done. Done. All right.
Okay, Divisha,
So,
thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
See you.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
See you. It was a wonderful conversation. I'm still very jealous of the fact that I didn't go to MGD after. She becomes like the sixth person that I'm speaking to who is speaking very highly of Maharani Gayatri Devi school. There are a couple of other MGDians who are there on my page. If you are an MGDian, don't forget to comment on this video and share it with your community, share it with your friends. I have made another video with the sustainable architect Raghu Pratap. You can go ahead right here and click on the video and watch it. I'll see you in the next episode now. Bye bye.